Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's talk about some horror directors, shall we? Hey, what's up guys? This is Nick of the Lost River Drive-In, and I am coming at you today because I want to talk about my top 10 horror directors. These are the 10 horror directors that I watch the most. Which 10 directors do I find myself watching their films more than others? That's what this list is. And I think some of these are going to surprise some people. So coming in at number 10 is going to be Joe Dante. Joe Dante doesn't have a huge list of films that he has directed, but he has a few standout ones that really kind of just vault him into the top 10 for me. Obviously, Joe Dante directed the original Piranha. Joe Dante directed The Howling, which is one of the better werewolf films. He directed Gremlins, Gremlins 2. Dante had a really nice stretch there in the late 70s, early 80s, where he was pumping out some really good movies. He also has some producing credits and stuff on some nice titles. Joe Dante is a guy that I feel like doesn't get talked about enough. Now, if you're a fan of Gremlins, you know who Dante is. It might surprise you to talk to the average casual moviegoer, and they wouldn't know that Joe Dante directed The Howling or the original Piranha, which are two classic horror films. So again, Joe Dante comes in at number 10. Coming in at number 9 is going to be another surprise to people, and that is Adam Wingard. Yes, Adam Wingard comes in at number 9, and why is that? He's directed You're Next, which was a surprise hit in 2011, caught a lot of people off guard. The Guest, which is more of a mystery thriller, but horror elements to it, which is a fantastic movie. Blair Witch 2016, which is a super underrated and underappreciated horror sequel, in my opinion. I love that film. Now, he's also directed Godzilla vs. Kong, which I also love that film. Wingard doesn't have a super long list. The horror movies that he has directed are all super solid. I would be remiss if I did not put Adam Wingard on this list. Coming in at number 8 is going to be Alexandre Aja. First and foremost, he has directed the remake of The Hills Have Eyes, which is definitely top 10 remake. Absolutely, it's a fantastic remake. He's directed Piranha 3D, which is a super fun, enjoyable bloodbath of a remake. He directed the 2019 alligator film Crawl, which is fantastic. High tension. He is, without a doubt, a director that is absolutely on the rise. And I'm very, very, very excited to see where his career continues to go from here, because he has made some super solid movies and he doesn't get talked about enough. To me, he feels like one of those directors where he makes a movie and a lot of people like the movie. You know, oh, I love this movie, but they don't know who directed it. Well, it's a Shaw. Coming in at number 7, and this is really going to surprise some people. Very limited in his horror directing, but his horror directing, super impactful for me. Number 7 is Sam Raimi. Obviously, Sam Raimi directed The Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness. A fantastic trilogy. One of my favorite trilogies of all time. So that right there lands him on the list, period. He also has Drag Me to Hell, which is a super underappreciated and just not talked about enough horror film. Because it's zany, it's kind of crazy, but so is Evil Dead, and everybody loves that. Obviously, he did the original Spider-Man trilogy. Sam Raimi's just a really talented director, and although he's only made a few horror films, they're great horror films. He also has a ton of producing credit on movies. He's actually a producer on the new Evil Dead film. Doesn't get talked about enough. Feel like he deserves more love. So number 7, Sam Raimi. Coming in at number 6 is going to be Toby Hooper. Toby Hooper absolutely has to make this list. If you're a horror fan, especially 70s on, Toby Hooper's got to make your list. Why does Toby Hooper have to make my list? Well, it's pretty simple. He directed the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is an immortal classic, an untouchable, okay, first of all. So let's just get that out in the open now. He directed The Funhouse. Fantastic movie. Don't feel like it gets talked about enough. Poltergeist. One of the best paranormal haunting movies I've ever seen. One of the most effective, has stuck with me my entire life, and still creeps me out to this day. He directed the sequel to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, which is a fantastic sequel. May he rest in peace. Toby Hooper was absolutely phenomenal. He was a great director. He always brought a certain style to his movies, and it was more of a, it was never this super polished look. Almost like his style was just kind of gritty and very down to earth and very stripped to the basics. And I loved that about Toby Hooper. All right, top 5. I'm sure this top 5 will not be controversial at all, guys. So don't even worry about it. You're going to agree with every pick I have. You're going to be like, yep, this guy knows what he's talking about. Number 5, Mike Flanagan. A director that hasn't been on the scene super long, but the movies he's made, oh yeah. This dude is a maestro. And you know it. You can just tell when you watch his films. And I'm very, very, very excited for what he does next. Mike Flanagan has directed Oculus, which is a fantastic movie. It really is. I didn't care for the ending, but a great movie nonetheless. Hush, which blew everybody away on Netflix because that was a super good Netflix original movie. Dr. Sleep, one of my favorite horror films of all time. He accomplished making a fantastic sequel to an already fantastic film from 4 decades ago. And a very impressive feat in and of itself. And also was the director for The Haunting of Hill House and The Haunting of Bly Manor Netflix series, and I loved both of those. Mike Flanagan has a very, very, very unique style. When I watch a Mike Flanagan movie, first of all, I know it's a Mike Flanagan movie. Second of all, I think he plays in the world of paranormal, entities and stuff like that super well. I think that is his niche group, and I'd love to see him stay in there. Not that he can't branch out, but always remember your roots, I guess, and what you're best at. Mike Flanagan is a guy that I'm really excited to see what happens next in his career because I think he's done fantastic, and I'm putting him at number 5 on my list. Coming in at number 4, the most controversial one ever, I know, Robert Cummings, aka Rob Zombie. Now, I get it. Rob Zombie's got some duds. Looking at you, 31. He also has some gems, House of a Thousand Corpses, and Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. 2 of my favorite horror films. He's got some middle-of-the-road movies. 3 from Hell, Lords of Salem, which had potential. Here's the thing with Rob. Rob Zombie knows how to direct. This man can direct a film. We want to talk about his script writing? That's another story. But when it comes to directing a film, this guy, he nails it. His movies are always, they have a very specific look and feel. That's Rob Zombie for you. If you're into that style, that kind of gritty, dirty realism type of look and feel to a movie, you get it in spades with Rob Zombie. I'm very excited to see his remake of The Munsters, and I think a lot of people are going to be surprised when that movie comes out. I think it's really going to vault Rob Zombie in a lot of casual people's eyes as a filmmaker, because people are going to see it. It's going to be tame, obviously, and they're going to go, wow, this is oozing with atmosphere, and it looks great, and it's directed great. And you'll probably start to see Rob kind of branch off into some stuff like that, too, which is totally fine. I'm very, very excited. I'm rambling a little bit, but I'm super stoked to see what else Rob does. I think he's a very talented film director. Top 3. Number 3 is Wes Craven. Wes Craven directed just look at the dude's filmography, okay? A Nightmare on Elm Street. The Hills Have Eyes, Last House on the Left, Scream, Scream 2, The People Under the Stairs, Shocker. He was magnificent. He was absolutely magnificent. Again, may he also rest in peace. What a talented film director. Very, very good with telling a story with a camera. Very good at scaring you, building dread. He wasn't a shock kind of director. He was a lot more old school in how he scared his audience. The first thing I think of when I think of him is the way he handled the character of Freddy Krueger in the first Nightmare on Elm Street film. Keeping him shrouded in darkness for so long, throughout almost the entire movie, you barely see Freddy. Like, he's always dimly lit. That was a classic monster movie technique if I'd ever seen one. Wes Craven was easily one of the more talented directors that I've ever had the pleasure of watching their work. The world absolutely misses him. And the film world especially absolutely misses him because he had a gift that, to this point, there's never been another Wes Craven. Okay? And there probably never will be. Coming in at number 2, and this is the one that I think people are going to be like, oh, wow. James Wan, number 2 horror movie director of all time. James Wan just swings and hits home runs. This dude doesn't miss, okay? Dead Silence, super underappreciated and very creepy. Traumatized me as a child. Insidious, fantastic. Insidious Chapter 2, I will defend till the day I die. I think it's a very good movie. Saw, fantastic. The Conjuring, fantastic. The Conjuring 2, even better. The fact that this guy has 3 films that he's directed in probably my top 25 horror films ever made, I don't know, maybe, that's pretty damn impressive. That's going to land you on this list, for sure. My goodness. I promise you guys, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, people will be talking about James Wan like the way we talk about a Wes Craven or a John Carpenter now. I mean, he is going to be a legend when it's all said and done. And for good reason, because he is a terrific filmmaker. Now, I know he's branched off recently and doing other things. Made one of the Fast and Furious movies and Aquaman. Never saw either one of those movies, but good for him. I'm really excited to see Malignant in September. You know, an original horror idea that he is directing. I'm excited to see him get back behind the camera and direct another horror film. James Wan can build suspense and dread and fear like nobody's business. I mean, watching some of his movies, even when something is not supposed to be scary, is scary. And you just can't help it because he's just that good with a camera and lighting. Just setting a scene. Absolutely fantastic. So for me, number 2, James Wan. Jimothy Wan. And number 1, to nobody's surprise, is the horror master. The master himself. A lot of people, you'll get some argument from some people about it, but a lot of people will see this and go, okay, I agree with that one. I won't give you much argument. John Carpenter. John Carpenter directed my favorite film of all time, which is Halloween. He's also directed many more films that I love. The Fog. Ugh. I love The Fog. The Thing. I love The Thing. Christine. Come on. I even enjoy his latest directorial effort, The Ward, from 2010. I think it is a pretty good movie. Prince of Darkness. I mean, you cannot go wrong with John Carpenter. He is called the horror master for a reason because he's a master at it. He's a maestro. To create a character like Michael Myers, one of the big 3 that has lasted for generations and will last for generations to come, and treat the character like he did as an entity, a force of evil almost, but he's a man. And the way it just captivated audiences, that right there was all you needed to know who John Carpenter was and who he was going to be from that point forward. And he has made some absolutely fantastic films. He's truly, truly the master of horror. I will never argue that. And John Carpenter is my number 1. Now, I will say to wrap this up, guys, some of you guys are probably looking at this list and you're going, oh my God, where's George A. Romero? Where's Stanley Kubrick? Guys, 1, I'm not a big zombie guy. I'm not. So if you made it to the end and you didn't see George A. Romero, I'm not a big zombie guy. I've never been big into zombie movies. There are definitely more accomplished and arguably better directors. These are just my personal favorites. George A. Romero, if we were doing an objective list, George A. Romero would have been on the list. Kubrick would have been on the list. But for me, these are my top 10. And I'm very happy with my picks because my top 10 tell you something about me and the types of movies that I like. A very even mix of modern horror and classic 70s, 80s horror. So that is my top 10 horror directors of all time. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share this video with your friends, and check out the Patreon if you haven't already, okay? This is Nick at the Lost River Drive-In, pulling out.